past 6 years, I have suffered with a predisposed rare chronic nerve disorder. Since September 9th, 2007, I was playing soccer, and I tweaked my knee. And it was at the beginning of my senior year of high school, and all of a sudden, I felt an immense amount of pain in my knee about the size of a Band-Aid. Over the next couple days, that pain proceeded to spread, and I became wheelchair-bound by Wednesday. Over the following 3 months after that, I saw doctor after doctor. I was put on numerous medications, went procedure after procedure, and not only could the doctors not cure me, they couldn't even figure out what was wrong. Finally, 2 months later, 2 doctors finally agreed on a diagnosis: reflex sympathetic dystrophy. By that time, the disease had spread to the full length of both legs, and the doctors, when they figured out what was wrong, they told me, I remember sitting there in the doctor's office, and then the doctor said, "You will never walk again. You will probably die from this." And I just was in disbelief. And so I was at home and was going through all of this. And I decided to go do a bunch of research because I just decided to be proactive about my situation. And I tried every treatment that there was for this disease. And I found myself later in more pain, more depressed, more anxious, and honestly, I just began waiting to die. So one of the treatments, though, that I did find was an experimental one, and it worked for 3 months. During those 3 months, I had the high hopes of attending my #1 school of choice, Stony Brook University, even though it was across the country from anyone I knew. I had no friends here, I had no family here, so I decided to surround myself with people that I thought could be supportive towards me. So in March 2011, the treatments stopped working. And I began to speak with my doctors about different types of treatments. And one of the treatments was actually being put into a medically induced coma every single week while I was attending classes full-time in addition to working a job. And so after that stopped working, after 3 months, I was sent to the Mayo Clinic hospital in Rochester, Minnesota. I was there for over a month, and before I went, I actually ordered a green dinosaur onesie online. I figured it would keep my spirits up and that it would keep me warm since I knew the inside halls of hospitals all too well. Quickly, I was greeted in the hospital with the smiles and laughter of everyone who saw me. I mean, if you can imagine just walking down the halls, I mean, lots of you here have been in hospitals, I'm sure, and if you all of a sudden saw someone walking around in a dinosaur onesie, you can't help but smile. And the memories that I have of the interactions with the different other patients at the Mayo Clinic will forever be embedded in my mind. I remember this one time I was walking to the hospital cafeteria, and there were these 2 little girls that were in wheelchairs. They were no older than 8 years old, and their mothers were pushing them. And you would not know this, but they were actually suffering from terminal cancer. But you couldn't tell by the larger-than-life smiles that they had on their faces when they saw me. And so when our paths finally met, I greeted them and said hello, and I conveyed messages of hope and strength, and I said goodbye, and I started walking away. As I started walking away, one of their mothers pulled me aside and said, "I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what all of this is about. But whatever it is, keep doing it. You have changed and inspired and helped these girls so much more than you could ever imagine." I remember thinking to myself, wait, me? me. I did all of that. And how could something so small like wearing this dinosaur onesie make such a difference? Upon returning to Stony Brook, I noticed during midterms that, on any college campus, the air begins to be full of stress and anxiety, and I thought to myself, it's another perfect environment to bring the dinosaur onesie out and start wearing it. So I actually went to my midterms and started taking all my tests in my dinosaur onesie. And it actually, I had other people coming up to me and saying, "You're awesome for doing this." And I remember in one of my tests, actually, I was in a large lecture hall on campus, and I entered from the back, and the professor saw me as I entered, and he had the biggest smile on his face, and I knew already it was a success. And I walked all the way to the very front row where nobody usually sits, and I sat there to take my test. And as soon as the people saw me in the room, there was this air of stress that was just lifted. And so I thought, how can I do this and continue these interactions even though if I wasn't there? So I decided to create these wax figurines that were modeled after my own image and create the Dinosaur Onesie Project. First of all, wax was a very important decision. It was something that was fragile, that if you were to take care of it, it would last you for a very long time, but it would break eventually. And it was intriguing to me to see how people would interact with these wax figurines. There was a note attached to each of them that said, "Take me on an adventure, post pictures of me at," and then it was the project's website. And for me, it was interesting to see where these dinosaurs went because they had a life of their own, and how people started to modify their dinosaurs as they broke. Did they fix them? Did they add new parts? So, and then I wanted to include this concept of building a community digitally. So all of a sudden, people were submitting images that were creating this story dialogue of what was going on in these different lives. Here are just a few of some of the submitted images to the project. I like this one, little additions. And if you can see it in the mirror, it says dinosaur in the reflection. So all of a sudden, these dinosaurs began having their lives of their own. And yes, this is a college campus, so so that was very interesting. But then people started getting mad at me. They were like, "Just give me a dinosaur, give me a dinosaur." And I really wanted this to be something where people would find them around campus. I put them in any unsuspecting place, and it was something that was a surprise that you just came across. So how could I keep these ideals of the project, but still include everyone who wanted to participate? So I started these wax, doing silk screens, because I am originally a printmaker. So the idea of, I began to get a bunch of different silk screens and create an image that here you can see, and it has this very empowering statement that became a mantra for the project. And it was extinct once before, you will not be the death of me. And this empowering statement was something that I had already been through all of my medical challenges. I have come now to this point where I was on no medication. I was not doing any more treatments. Yes, I still had my disease. Yes, it still progressed, but I was able to overcome my own medical challenge within myself. So at the Mayo Clinic, what they did is they took me off of everything. They said, "We're going to treat you as a human being instead of this mass that was infected by some disease that was just there to be poked and prodded." They actually looked at me as a human being and said, "Okay, let's bring you back to the basics." So they looked at nutrition. They looked at healthy lifestyles, including proper exercise, and really looking at how you look at life and how your perspective on things. So this statement was something that I thought was very empowering, that, I'm not going to go back to that. Even though there are some negativity things that were also going on during my life then, I wasn't going to let that bother me. I wasn't going to accept defeat. This was my declaration of empowerment. At the first silk screening event, I remember this girl who came up to me. I was starting to set up my desk, and she had no idea what the project was about. She hadn't found a dinosaur, and she just saw someone setting up, some art project. And she said, what's this all about? And I was so nervous. I was standing there, and I just was like, okay, well, I'm going to share this project. I'm going to tell her the story behind it. So I told her everything that was going on, and I remember her face. She just was like frozen, and she just stared at me with disbelief. And she said, at the very end of everything, she said, "Can I give you a hug?" That was the first thing, and the only thing out of her mouth is, "Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Of course," and so she gave me a hug, and she said, "I don't have a shirt for you right now to print on, but I will go get a shirt, and I will come back with friends." And she came back with like 15 friends the next time I saw her. And so this exchange became a vital part also in the project. So similar to the wax dinosaurs, this idea of the art that I was producing, the silk screens and the wax figurines, were half of the art. The other half was completing the work was the interactions with others. So the pictures that were submitted to the website, the people bringing shirts, and speaking with me and interacting face-to-face. So this began to blur the lines here on campus between the art community and the rest of the university. And it interrupted students' daily life with the Dinosaur Onesie, which I created a playground for social learning to complement the university's heavy academic environment. So the success of the project led me to actually take the project on the road. And so during the summer of 2011, I actually did a road trip from San Diego to just north of San Francisco to a town called Gualala. And I wanted to break the confines of this project being within only hospitals and universities. So I would go to parks, I went to community centers, I went to restaurants, I went everywhere and anywhere to talk about this project to anyone who wanted to listen. And strangers began getting involved in this as well, who I had never met before, and who all of a sudden people were also finding dinosaurs because I continued to hide them throughout the road trip. And something that during that road trip, I kind of decided that it was really interesting that I felt like, how could I be inspiring all these people? It was just, once again, just me being me. But something that I continued to promote, I guess, was the idea that we know that others can inspire us, but we always forget that we can inspire other people as well. So, similar to my disease, something small can generate great change. Even now, like I said before, my disease continues to get worse and worse. But the perspective I have on the world and on others and on myself creates an equilibrium of extraordinary normality, regardless of all the challenges that I've gone through. My body has actually become half of the artwork as well. So what I've been going through is one half, and the other half is how I choose to interact with it. Of course, I could sit at home in bed, depressed, and not experience anything. Or there's option number 2. Option number 2 is to engage with the world and make the conscious decision every day to create change, to go out in the world and just live a regular life and try to do my best. So to make that conscious decision for option number 2 is the driving force behind the Dinosaur Onesie Project. Anyone can relate to it as well. You don't have to be, it doesn't matter about your race, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your age, or your health. This project can apply to you. And in turn, anyone can make a difference. You don't have to be the smartest kid in the class. You don't have to be someone who's famous, or someone who has a lot of money. Anyone can. And so it doesn't matter. These different challenges that we face in our lives is what brings us all together. So it doesn't matter if it's like a big, large, life-impacting one like I have, or if it's just a hiccup in your daily routine. We can choose that second half. So the project's actually been to 25 states across the nation and 20 countries around the world so far. Here's an example in front of the Berlin Wall in Germany. It has gone on 2 road trips. I've hidden over 500 wax figurines. I've silkscreened over 700 shirts, and I've had numerous radio interviews and newspaper articles, and collaborations with numerous organizations as well. This award-winning program has now reached over 82,000 people around the world. Today I stand before you speaking about this dinosaur onesie and happiness. But actually, the whole thing is about the ability to adapt. When I was on my road trip 2 summers ago, I was always referring to my disease as overcoming my disease or my challenge. But a Paralympiad, Amy Mullins, she has this quote that I absolutely love: "To overcome adversity implies that success or happiness is about emerging on the other side of a challenging event unmarked or unsheathed by having the ability to sidestep or circumnavigate my pitfalls." Turns out, I had already begun to do this. I had already begun to adapt. Ironically, it was with the dinosaur onesie. I leave you all now with a quote, one of my favorite quotes, with a slight adjustment. "The question is not whether or not I will meet adversity, but I know how I will meet it." In my dinosaur onesie. Thank you.